Hello, Nick.
Hello. How are you doing, mate? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Is everything okay on my end?
Yeah, everything's great. I can hear you crystal clear. So, we're waiting for one more person and the co-host, and we're going to start soon.
Okay, good. Just gonna grab some water.
Yeah, sure thing.
Алло?
Hello.
Hello. Ух ты смотри, у нас еще один есть этот.
Мы начали уже.
Okay,
Right,
are
so-
we beginning now?
Yeah, he's coming back.
Hi Nick, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, there's Cav here as well, and there's another guy coming
Cav.
just in a moment.
Hi Kav, my name is Anton, but my nickname is sort of people developer, but that's not important anyway. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I just have an excuse to use my nice microphone now, so that's pretty good.
Oh,
Great.
yeah.
Nice microphone, mate.
Great.
Hello.
Amazing. Hi Ethan, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it wasn't so bad. I just worked, really. Getting
Alright.
making that money.
Right.
Okay, guys.
Nice, guys. Amazing. Thank you for being here. So, I'll introduce myself. I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Nick. I'm one of the graduates from University of Essex. I finished there last year, essentially. So I studied computer science, I've done the bachelor's degree there, and we were one of the pack of students who were affected by the COVID situation, right? So what happened was we were going fine through the first half of our final year, and then all of a sudden, because of the situation with COVID, everything started shutting down. That was around January, February sort of period, and during this time, what we had encountered was something new to us, and we decided to make a podcast about sharing our experience regarding this situation, as well as have other people on our panel to share their experience from their situation. So I'll give it now to my co-host, to Anton, and he'll introduce himself, and we'll carry on by introducing others.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. So hi everyone, my name is Anton. So I studied at the University of Essex as well. I did the computer science degree together with Nick. We graduated last year, just like when the COVID started and when the lockdown started. So we wanted to make a podcast just discussing a bit about the university life of students under lockdown. What are they experiencing? What the support that they're getting or not getting at all? And just in general, the situation that university students face currently. So, Nick, would you like to start with explaining what happened last year with us?
Yeah, sure.
So how it all started.
Yeah, sorry, give me 1 second. Yeah, so it all started around January, February. We were doing one of our iTeam session, which is a session available on University of Essex that allows other people to gather together and start discussing things about different businesses that come to us for help. So there's an iTeams program, essentially, and we joined that around end of December or January, from what I remember. So around that period of time, we encountered this COVID situation that was unfolding. Well, it began unfolding in China, and our very first response was, look how fast it's spreading. Is it going to affect us, or is it going to affect our country? And of course, as we all know, that it didn't just affect our country, it affected so many countries. And around that period, what we had in our hands was a tool that allowed us to monitor and track how many cases there were, and we saw this exponential graph that showed how many cases are being brought into the UK, and so on and so forth. And that was pretty much around the period when the UK government decided to start a lockdown, and it was a very, very new thing for everyone, to be honest. And this halted our studies, sort of. It disrupted them, to be honest with you. So it was quite a disruption, because we had to change the way we are studying and the way we have to process the material, because in our case, we didn't have a lot of material Moodle prepared and stuff like that, so that came later. Yeah, so that's the background.
But I think we also got lucky a bit in our case, together with Nick, that we were in our final year. And the lockdown essentially came at the end of March, and that was essentially only 2 weeks of studies left by that point. So more or less, we're more lucky compared to the other guys who are studying now, because we've done majority of our studies face to face. So I think we can introduce our guest today, Nick. So
yes, sure. I would like to introduce Ethan and Cav, who both agreed very kindly to be part of our podcast. Thank you guys for coming. So Ethan here is one of the students at the university who has quite a few opinions that I would like to share in regards to how the quality of education has been affected in regards to education and university education in particular, and how what mechanisms and what sort of actions were taken in order to tackle the issue with COVID for universities and other schools. And of course, Cav is here from one of the Facebook groups that has over 200 or 300 members, from what I've seen so far, who are actually protesting regarding the rent strikes. So they would actually what they want to do is, from what I understood so far, and Cav here will be able to clarify, is to hold or at least subsidize the payments towards rent for people who can't even stay in accommodation, because as far as I know, international students most of them are not able to study in the UK due to the restrictions. So yeah, I guess I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and we can jump into the questions and topics. Sure, anybody can start.
So yeah, I'm Ethan. Yeah, I think the way that Nick put that was very eloquent. I do like that. I am very opinionated
Right.
on the way the university is treating the students and the complete lack of support that we've had. I'm studying computer science as well, and you know, there's a lot of, you know, it's a subject that needs a lot of resources, and you know, the fact that we've not really had those available is it's not very good to put it
Right.
to put it as simply. But I'll let Cav introduce himself.
Yeah, my full name is Kieran Kavanagh. For the past like 10 years, everyone's called me Cav because there's always like another Kieran in the same lecture in the
Right.
same class. So everyone started calling me Cav. And with the rent strike in particular, if you're around the University of Essex and you're in private accommodation, you're still paying for that, even though you're not there. So basically, they're being completely ripped off, and so there is a private accommodation rent strike. But with the University of Essex, what they've done is you can pause your rents, which is good, and it's partly a reason why in the end we had to postpone our rent strike. We were going to rent strike on the third time, and now we're postponing it to April, which is the last rent payment. So depending on how that goes, that we'll see what comes from that. But generally there's a lot more to say about this university. There's a lot more to say about the student union. There's a lot more to say about universities in general. It's a much bigger topic, really.
Right, so I would just like to ask you a question regarding particularly the rent strike. So you told us that the payments for the rent are frozen. Is that right? How does that work? Could you give us a small brief?
At one point, basically on the same day, we officially launched the rent strike because we couldn't go back in. COVID was a nightmare. We're already paying too much for rent. You know, like you get a maintenance loan here in the UK if you're from the UK. Most of it goes in your rent. So what you're maintaining is where you live. You can't eat, whatever. You have to get a job, or you have to go to the bank of mummy and daddy. And a lot of people don't have the bank of mummy and daddy. So, you know, basically that was the issues we were addressing. But in the end, what the university ended up doing is giving people an out option. So you could come back to university if you needed to study in Silverad. If you in my case particularly, like my brother needs his own room. Like I went back for Christmas for a month. And he was either sleeping on the couch or he was sleeping with my parents in their room. So he needed his own room. And so I came back and I kept paying rent, obviously, because, the rent strike has been postponed. But most people, they're at home now. Like my flat is empty. Most people are at home and the university let them pause the rent. So as soon as they come back, they start paying from that day, which was start of...
So, sorry, Cap, can I ask you, which accommodation are you in currently?
I'm in the houses.
The houses.
Oh, right. Okay.
Nice.
So it's totally empty, or is it? So your flat is totally empty.
My flat is empty. Yeah.
Okay. Are there a lot of people in other flats? Is there a guess?
Depends where. I mean, some of the towers were international students and they couldn't go home. I know people from Romania who couldn't go home. People from a lot of places in Europe who couldn't go home because of the strain that Boris Johnson essentially let spread here for so long.
So they can't even get out of the university. So they have to stay there.
They're not sure. Yeah, they're not sure. They couldn't go home for Christmas, and they're not sure if they can go home for Easter. So that's an even harder situation for them in particular.
And they, of course, paying. Full fees, everything.
Yeah, they have to pay. There's nothing they can, and also, well, they have to pay full fees and everything, and they don't have jobs, so it's really hard for them.
Okay, of course, because of course all the SU bars and everything. I mean, everything that provides jobs for students essentially.
Everything's gone. I mean, the SU hasn't helped as well because what they've done is they've decided that the SU shop should shut at like 5 p.m. even though most students wake up at like 3. So, there's no, but it's true. It's literally.
True. Right.
You're not wrong.
Students, you guys wake up at like 5 sometimes. On Saturdays, you might not wake up. There's a sort of institutionalism which sort of sets itself in its own ground and doesn't actually care what students think, like whatsoever.
So I think it's their initiative to make you wake up early.
Right. That's a very innovative initiative.
They're trying to get us to wake up early.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
And Yeah, so Ethan, you live in accommodation as well. So what's your
Yes.
opinion about this?
Well, yeah, I'm living in the Keys at the moment, and I do agree that the ability for people to be able to pause their contracts has definitely been a good thing on the university's part. I hadn't heard about this private accommodation where people still had to pay for it, and that's pretty shocking. And I think that anybody who's in that situation at the moment should definitely go check out Cow's Paid and definitely get involved with that. But definitely for a lot of people, they it's very confusing for everyone at the moment. No one knows what's going on. There hasn't been much support at all from the government when it comes to students. So when I was coming back, because I live in Brighton back home, and when I was coming back, I had no idea, one, if it was legal, because students were basically not mentioned at all. It was kind of a grey area on all the stuff that...
Ethan, I can respond to that.
Yes.
The other rent strikes, we're quite organised legally. Like, we're very organised legally. It's completely legal to go back to university. It's legal.
I thought so. I did look into it.
The advice is that you shouldn't.
Yes.
And which is good advice because there's a global pandemic. But like the government have made it legal, which is, if you make something like basically people think it's illegal, but it's not. It's really weird.
Yeah.
And basically the reason why they've done that is so people on landlords and private landlords and everything, they don't have to give you your rent back because government hasn't made it illegal. You can come here. They're leaving it in that grey area because it's slightly advantageous for them.
They're doing it on purpose because they clearly do not care about the students.
Kav, can I ask you a small question? I'm sorry for interrupting you. Kav, you said you're very legally organized. So how does it start? I mean, do you have a legal support from someone? Or
Well, the University of Essex Rent Strike in particular doesn't, but others do, and we get word from them. We get like letters they have with some legal support. Like Manchester Rent Strike is particularly good for having like free legal observers and stuff like that.
So this is across the nation. I mean, we see this across the nation, isn't it? The rent strikes. So
pretty much every university. Pretty much every university has had an attempt. Some of them failed. Some of them have become different sort of organizations. Some of them have become permanent sort of campaigning organizations and less of an actual rent strike organization. The University of Manchester one is not messing about. They will get their vice chancellor to resign within a year. Like they're very serious.
So it's very, very, very serious with the.
Oh yeah, it depends where and it depends on the conditions. Like the University of Manchester had different problems. They had racism. They had the worst sort of. They had such a bad run of it that everyone was on board with not paying rent and not even listening to anything the university said.
Didn't they at one point fence one accommodation in?
Yeah, but they fenced so many of them, and the students just turned up and they just chucked the fence down.
Yeah.
So. Oh yes, I remember that in the BBC actually. Yes, that was like a concentration camp. That was fun.
Yeah, they made a concentration camp.
Yeah, we're definitely in a much better situation than them, but I don't think that it should be taken very lightly. I think it's definitely down to the government, as you say, because I mean, if you look back to last year in August with the whole A-level kind of response and the fact that they marked down basically anyone with lower grades, it kind of shows that they don't care about students.
That was quite a bit of situation, I remember. I remember distinctly because they cancelled the GCSEs and stuff, and you were supposed to get admittance based on your predictable grade, which was decided by an algorithm, right? It was decided by an algorithm and not by a person. But they rolled that back afterwards, didn't they? So at the end, So how did that work out at the end? Who's responsible for your grades? How were you?
Ethan, go first.
Graded?
I have a lot to say. So go
first. I'm very opinionated on this one.
Sure thing.
Basically, the algorithm that they made took into account things like area and specific schools, and historically, private schools get better grades, right? That's a well-known fact. Mm-hmm. But that meant if you were a high achiever at a state school or a state college, then you were most likely going to get marked down by this algorithm anyway.
I see.
Just because of the school you went to, which created this whole massive divide between private schools and public schools. And I without getting too political, that's basically just reinforcing a class divide that we already have.
Yeah, and it's even more interesting than that. I wrote 2 blogs about this at the time. I was like, well, it's a global pandemic. They're gonna do a little bit of grade inflation, they're going to let people grades go up, because it's like, come on. We've been through absolute crap.
Yes.
And I assumed that it would be politically unfeasible for them to do anything worse, but no, they did the worst. And not just that, private schools like Eton, some of them were like, oh my God, brother, I've got marked down. But because Eton had enough students to get marked down. If you have under 12 students in your year, which some really small particular religious schools like
rural areas,
very rural private schools, stuff like that, they didn't get marked down at all. So if their teachers gave every single student an A star, they would have been fine with that.
Yeah.
So our local private school where I'm from, they didn't get their marks didn't get moved at all.
So I see it was like a roller coaster, basically. I mean, a lot of luck and a lot of,
Yeah, no, well, to be fair, with the pandemic, a lot of it's a gamble. But we would blame, everyone starts blaming the government, but also the opposition has been awful. I mean, the opposition.
So speaking of the government and the response, I have an article, or rather a petition form in front of me, right? That the petition says enable all students to end university tenancy. And that goes back to our previous discussion, to end all university tenancy agreements early due to COVID-19. And the government response was, and I quote, because that's from the official petitions.gov.uk website, the university and the private accommodation providers are autonomous, but the government encourages landlords to be fair and consider students' interests in their decisions about rental charges.
Encourages. That's the key word.
So,
there.
have you seen any impact of that? I mean, in your case, or with other students that you have?
I mean, typically, like, you know, when you're living in a house and you ask your landlord nicely, "Hi, I'd like to not pay rent. I just don't want to." They usually just let you not pay rent.
They're being very accommodating, aren't they?
Landlords are known for it.
They'll come in and they'll make you a cup of tea. It'll be great. They're encouraging landlords to be nice. Well, therefore, the landlords will be nice.
All right, I see. So, to close the matter to close the matter in regards to the private accommodation, to move on to another topic, what do you think should be the most appropriate response in your opinion, guys? What should have happened?
Well, I mean, the private accommodation, obviously, at that level, the private accommodation should have done something. At another level, the university should have done something, made a deal with the private accommodation. But at the main level, I mean, the government, if they want something to happen, you need to make it law. You need to, well, actually, evictions are banned. So, by the way, you don't have to pay rent until the end of the eviction ban, which will come in a long time. So, technically, like, if we couldn't pay rent, we couldn't be evicted. Like, you don't have to pay rent, but at the end of it, there's no process for sorting that out. Basically, at the end of it, you need to pay all of your rent, or you get evicted then with like 10,000, 2,000 pounds.
And you would probably get a county court judgment or something like that on your credit score, and that would ruin you.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly, supposedly judges are being way nicer or whatever. But
yeah, I see.
So basically, there's no safety net. There's nothing. So it's the situation. If the government actually wanted something to happen, they would write it into law. But they didn't actually want something to happen.
No, it's
so just a small question, Ethan.
Yes.
So going back to the university, you said that you didn't know if you can come back or not come back. So what was sort of the communication from the university? How do you feel about how is the university communicating with students in general, with you in particular? And do you feel it's appropriate? Are you like feeling informed about what's going to happen and what's the plan now?
I don't feel informed at all, to be honest. Because for me, it was a bit of a unique situation because I've got a job up here in Colchester and I was back down in Brighton for Christmas. So of course when Colchester and Brighton went into tier 4 at the same time, when we had a tier system. And so on that day, and on the day that was announced, anything around that time, we heard nothing from the university, and we didn't hear anything from the university until I think the new year. So I was already back by that point. So it seemed like a grey area for most people because we kind of expect to hear something from the university at least, to say, yeah, you can come back or you can't. And then I think the university originally said, don't come back until like the 25th of January or something along those lines.
The university's response was not to help students, it was to help their own PR. Because
exactly.
that their main goal of the University of Essex and all universities almost is to have good PR, and whatever happens after that is not important.
Yeah, because Essex specifically, what I learned from my induction week is that they want to become, I think, one of the top 100 universities in the world. So they're trying to act like a university.
They are on path to success.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They're trying to act like a Russell Group university. And, to kind of get into that kind of status, they have to look flawless. So this, PR campaign.
Now, speaking of flawless, and let's change the topic towards the quality of education. Now, speaking of flawless, you touched upon this subject just a moment earlier, and that was the communication key, the communication parts. That's what Anton asked. So in regards to the communication, from what I know, from what I've heard, from what I've seen, you were promised, right, blended learning approach. As far as I know, that's the term. So, was that delivered? If not, what happened?
Supposedly, we have a blended learning approach. Because they're like, with our blended learning approach, you can just go online. And, if anything happens, which it won't change, the whole year will be online. I mean, I had one lecturer tell me, like, I think you will have some in-person teaching before the end you finish university. I'm a first year. I mean, I hope next year at least. Jesus Christ. But yeah, the blended learning approach is another PR thing, because the government said that, like, when everything will be fine, university is going to open all as normal, it's going to be fine. We're going to have a massive movement of young people across the country who are like famous for carrying coronavirus because we have no idea. So yeah, that was a brilliant idea, and we have blended learning. I had like 3 in-person lectures, and they were basically PSHE. I mean, you guys might what do they officially call it? It's like career portfolio or something.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But basically, like, there was like 20 of us, like, socially distanced in a room, and there was a lecture with like one of these face shields on, and that I had 1 hour of that a week, and it was really good because, like, you don't have that, and it's very valuable, and the fact that it went is significant because it's not a blended learning approach anymore. The approach is online learning.
So that was essentially the peak of the blended learning approach.
And
that's how it reached.
Exactly.
Yeah, it definitely varies subject to subject. So, of course, I do computer science, and we didn't have any lectures in person, but we had labs. So for one lesson a week at 9 o'clock in the morning, we had a social distance lab split across 2 classrooms in 2 different buildings. And, we'd sit at the computer and do exactly the same things we do at wherever we were. And that, I suppose you could consider that blended learning. And I know there are still at the moment some for like the sciences, I think, like biology and
mainly medicine, like mainly and stuff.
Yeah, mainly medicine. There are some lessons going on at the moment, but for the most part, blended learning has basically just stopped. So we were promised blended learning, but
the natural question to ask after this, if there's no blended approach, you probably get all your material online from Moodle and Zoom, right? So what is your experience with that? Do you get, it comes down to 2 or 3 questions. Do you get regular Zoom lectures? Are they online or are they pre-recorded? The second is, do you get enough material on Moodle to be able to carry on with your studies? And finally, do you get any support from GLAs or any other person who is there to answer your questions, including how often do you get your, or rather how long it takes for your assignment to get graded? Yeah, well, I can reiterate the questions, of course, but you're more than welcome, guys, to answer any of those questions in any order.
Well, so yeah, everything is completely online nowadays.
Right.
And I know, of course, the support will vary from subject to subject, even from module to module, when it comes to how much support we get. But I kind of want to bring up one case that's fairly recent, to do with, we had an introduction to Python course. It's completely mandatory. And so we did our assignment and everything online. And then we had a final assignment, which was we had to make a program, yada, yada. The details aren't really that important. But the fact is there was one little feature that hadn't been mentioned in the main document.
Oh, I see.
Telling us about our assignment. There's one thing that the teacher wanted us to add that just was not at all mentioned.
So
I think it was mentioned in an email.
Miscommunication, I guess.
Yeah, and instead of when a load of people, I think there was a quote unquote petition where a bunch of people wrote an email to the teacher and to her boss and stuff. saying, look, this has been miscommunicated. No one knew what was going on. The response was basically, yeah, you should have known. I think it was written in the email at some point, but of course we get so many emails, and in a lot of the cases, someone responds to an email that's been sent out to everyone. Everyone sees the responses. You don't read those emails because they're basically private emails that are being made public to you because someone's replied all at some point. So I don't know where it was mentioned, but apparently it was. And instead of getting the support saying, oh, okay, I can see how it's being miscommunication, there's nothing. And you expect, given especially the situation that most of us are in, they might take a step back and say, okay, fine, it's just 5% of marks, but it kind of goes to show that a lot of the teachers at the end of the day don't really.
I see.
Yeah, there was a general campaign last year in this university because they ended up sacking a bunch of graduate teaching assistants, and they made them compete to get their jobs back. So essentially, less PhD students are helping out as GTAs. Now, GTAs do something significant. Like on the surface, you're like, oh, what does a GTA do? I don't know. They just sit in a Zoom meeting and be annoying. But they mark your papers, they mark your essays, and because of the lack of GTAs, I for my first term, and my subject is basically just essays, I had one essay. That was it, and I had a bunch of like multiple choice exams on Moodle and Zoom and stuff. And basically, there's like an arms race of students, because basically, like, if you turn up and they're like, okay, so this exam, yeah, it's a little bit open book, but generally, you should know this stuff. So if you get it wrong, don't worry about it. It's fine. Like, students are geared towards marks because that's what, like, we're paying a lot of money, and like after this we want a good job, and there's all these reasons why we want good marks. So we're under pressure to like just Google the answers. And basically, because so many people Google the answers, you see people like getting 98. And instead of the lecturer being like, okay, they're probably Googling the answers, no, her reaction was like, oh my God, everyone's doing so well this year. I don't even know, I have one essay and it was easy. Like, so basically,
disconnect.
The GTA problems were quite significant. Basically, they shouldn't have fired GTAs because of this pandemic.
Now, was there communication about this decision to you as a student? So, did you receive any email or sort of any communication material that told you, all right, this year you won't have this many people assisting you or something like that?
Well, I'm a first year, so I wouldn't have had that, but they kept it under the rug completely. Like, basically, like, I'm like, so why don't I have that many essays? And they're like, well, you have 2 essays. Well, I'm actually doing political economics, not politics, so I only have 1. And then they're like, the lecture would tell you, like, they're all recorded, so they wouldn't tell you too much, but they would tell you, like, okay, it's because we fired a bunch of GTAs, and I can't mark like 100 essays with good feedback. And some of them did mark 100 essays, and they gave us best feedback as they can. So then what ends up happening is students, by the end of it, read their feedback, and it's 4 lines of nothing. It's like just saying, like, the essay was 60 because I read it a bit, and I had to mark like 100 in the same week or whatever. So
in our case, we had some sort of automated Excel sheet or something like that essentially, if some sort of functionality worked, that would be added as a yes or no, as a Boolean value sort of thing, yes or no. And that would actually give out predefined marks. And if you checked 5-6 boxes, you would get 100%. If you checked that many boxes, you get. But of course, that's different to your course, of course.
Yeah, no, it's a whole different story. I mean, basically, essays are already like slightly subjective, but when you don't give feedback on it, it's really hard to improve. So essentially, it's a wasted year for a lot of students, but not all for students. Like, if you're a student who's interested on their own, like, a lot of the books I have up there aren't about my course, and I just, I'm here.
I see. Yeah.
So it has become more of what you've made of it over the years, but now, like, in this year, it's been completely, what do you make of it? You either pass because you Google the answers and do whatever, or you actually try and learn something, even though there's barriers in place to you actually learning and improving.
Yeah. So if you guys are having such experience, if you guys are having such a bad experience, I guess the first thing that comes into mind is to complain somewhere. So I would guess that Students' Union is a body that is built for students. That's why it's called Students' Union. So has Students' Union in any way or shape or form helped advance your queries and to get you support? And if not, I mean, do you have anything to
The
tell us
students,
in
the
regards to
students' union on this campus is not really democratic. Like, if you run for it, there are like four things you're meant to say, like what are you passionate about, what skills and experience do you have, but you can't say what you actually want to do. And it's essentially an offshoot of the university that looks representative. And I have one example of it not being that representative of students' queries or whatever. The VP of Education currently, there was meant to be a sort of somewhat policy negotiation over the no detriment policy. So there was somebody who was writing the no detriment policy, and there was the VP of Education. For some reason, the VP of Education did not talk to that person and wanted to talk to somebody higher up. Because I don't know, maybe if you talk to somebody higher up, you get more influence, you get to run next year, blah, blah, blah. So basically what ended up happening is the university put out their no detriment policy on their own without sort of SU implementation. And the students' union turned around, put it into a bunch of PR people. They posted it and they pretended that they made a negotiation about the no detriment policy. It was called
So it
no
was just a
detriment,
show.
no bullshit.
Just a smoke
and
screen.
Yeah, and basically it was detriment and it was bullshit. So the students' union has been a complete failure. And actually, like with the rent strike campaign, that's sort of still going on. But the main campaign for me and sort of a lot of people who were involved with the rent strike campaign is a campaign about democratizing the SU and making it an actual SU, because the SU they have failed, and it's not because of the people who are there, it's because the way they were elected is about whether they have skills or whether they did Duke of Edinburgh bronze or silver or whether they got whether they like dolphins or something. It's nothing to do with what they actually think or what their actual ideas are and how they can go to war with the university when it's necessary.
Cav, I just want to ask you about. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go on.
Oh, I was just going to expand on the SU thing a little bit. So, as someone who doesn't really follow the SU, the main thing that I've kind of, or the only thing I've heard about it was that vote that they did, which was
the Parliament one, from what I remember, right?
It was to try and get the students' opinion on cheapening student fees overall. Should student fees be lower this year, given the current situation? And so from what I saw, that went out, and a lot of people thought that if that vote went through, then they were going to have their
God, I wish
fees lowered. And then there was a lot of angry backlash in the computer science kind of circles, where people were saying things like, "Oh, the student union should never have put that vote out." Because it's made people think that their fees are going to be lowered. And to be honest, in a way, I can kind of get that, because I think that the student union should definitely be more clear, and they should definitely be taking more of an active role. Because the response to that was, no, we're not going to do anything about it. Here's what
the student union did. They got that and they were like, wow, look at this, students think something. So what they did is they wrote a bunch of letters and then they shut up about it. Yeah, they didn't actually do anything. They didn't actually say oh, well, if you don't do this, we'll be annoyed, and we're a students union and we can organize to represent ourselves, and when we're actually upset about something, we are. At the top, what's happened is 5 universities have wrote a letter to the government asking for more money. That's all that's happened. And they started a letter writing campaign. They're like, write a letter to your MP. And it's like,
I remember that circulating around Facebook posts and Facebook groups. Write a letter to your MP, ask them to do this and this and that sort of thing, while trying to push their responsibilities away from them and putting them on an MP, which of course an MP's member of parliament, and you go to him or to her for the issues. But I mean, it doesn't make you less responsible for having the responsibility of communication and taking an action sort of thing.
Yeah, so the students' union figured out the students were angry, and their response was, "You're angry, aren't you?" And they were like, "Yeah, we're angry, so we're not going to do anything about it. Shut up."
They're like, "Yeah, that's nice to know." Yeah.
So the bottom line is the fee stayed the same essentially, and it is. I mean, nothing is going to change. It seems like, and not even next year. I mean, obviously, it didn't change this year. It didn't change last year for us, because I remember when it started in March, when we were in the final year students. To be honest, we've missed 2 weeks of studies. I mean, really, because it was the end of March, and then the April is the spring holidays, the Easter vacation, and then May you just come back and sit your exams essentially. So we didn't miss much, and students, even though students complained and they said we're not getting the required support, not much has been done. But then it's understandable sort of. But this year, obviously, it seems like they didn't even plan to do anything. certainly. And in this regard, I just wanted Nick to show the financial statement that we obtained
Right. Yeah.
from the university website.
You touched
where-
upon that, Cav, for a moment there. You mentioned something about finances. So this is the financial statements here for 2019-20.
Yes, so the university now has a bounce back strategy, which they describe in their financial statements. One of the things that they did is, what they're saying here is, so they cut all the capital projects, essentially, they deferred them. So all the capital project and capital investments are postponed currently. And as we can see from the financial statement, their income is actually up. The way they did it is, they're still getting all the teaching income, which we're gonna see now. And what they did is they cut the expenditure. So that was the capital projects and some other things. They furloughed all the staff, essentially. So they're not paying, I guess, salaries, or it's going for the government currently. So far, they have a bounce back strategy, which will last until 2023, I guess, or however long it will take for things to recover. So what we can see is, I mean, they saved quite a bit of money, to be honest, and the income didn't go that much down. But of course, this is for the previous year, but still it accounts partly for the COVID effects. So it's very interesting to see the fact that it doesn't seem like they're getting much of extra support from the government, or at least, I mean, that they're doing whatever they can, so it seems like, to save the cash, essentially. And it doesn't seem like they're planning to spend much on the actual cutting of the fees or anything else. The strategy now is cut all the costs, make sure that we have cash as much as possible, and then let's see what happens.
Yeah, it seems like they were bracing for something like worse, because it wouldn't show that here. It says staffing up, but now they would have gone staffing down if they consider GTA staff, which I assume they do. So this is basically it's a year late. So essentially, what they've obviously, you know, with financial statements, you wait. It's an actual important like aspect of your business. So you have to wait until the next year to publish what actually is going on. But I assume when we see the next one, it'll be much more exciting. It'll have much more information.
Yes, of course, yes. But at least for now, we can see the fact that they outlined their strategy and their direction. So the direction is cut all the costs. I mean, you can see the expenditure went down massively from 282 million to something like 211. So
they cut costs and they keep students coming and they still keep in the green, which is quite surprising because essentially you
I mean they didn't do bad financially. Although of course they had to cut things like, I guess the SU is one of the bits, right, where they had to stop providing all the services. They're not making money from that side of the story. And of course the international students, that's very interesting because some of them now can't even come to the campus, and some of them are stuck there completely.
So they're taking a hit in regards to the revenue they would generate if students were coming to the campus and live on campus, because now that they've frozen the contract, I would assume that the students will pay from the date they start coming back. So they will be charged for the period once they return, and rather than for the period they haven't been there. So this might be one of the good actions that have been taken, and this might be reflected in the next financial statement. But the financial statement for 2019 and for 2020, it seems to be that they're quite well off compared to the situation with COVID and generally with the unemployment and the furlough scheme. One thing to mention is that many staff members were put on the furlough scheme according to the financial statement, which meant that we're getting around, from what I remember, from what I know, is 80% of the salary up to £2,500 are paid for by the government, and they have to pay the other 20, and the staff should be available to get back to recalled to work at any time and be able to start working. Yeah, so this is why it doesn't make much sense why they would actually want to reduce the GTAs and GLAs, which are the graduate lab assistants, because that is essentially what happened throughout a very short period of time, and then they recalled this decision from what I remember.
Yes, so another important point I wanted to say is that the university went down significantly in the leagues, actually. And in the National Student Satisfaction Survey, I think, which is also mentioned here, one of the reasons is maybe last year, of course you don't remember, but we as students, the third year, we experienced that in January 2020, there was a strike, January and February, I think, before the COVID started, there was already a strike. So education was disrupted back then already.
Yeah, there's a pension
before,
strike.
before
Right.
the COVID event. So the important thing is, obviously, with the management of about how they manage the pandemic and stuff, it feels like they're going to go down even more. Because I see a lot of students are unsatisfied, of course, with the quality of their response.
Yeah. I do definitely think these rankings, they're really important to universities and so many of these things, but the difference between a university at like 30 and 50 means nothing. The difference between 25 and 55 probably means nothing. I mean, once you get to like the difference between 1 and 10 is probably significant, but like it's just basically they run a bunch of numbers and it's almost at some point it's pretty much random. But obviously, like if a parent likes, oh, there's this one's at 35 and this one's at 40, so do you want to go to this one? And that's because we pay for our degrees. We don't actually think about these things. We think about like when we go out and we need a job because we have debt and we're burdened with this debt and we need to pay off this debt and we need to have a good job, because what's the point of going to university and not having a job? It's not about education or actually learning anything. It's about like the job, the money that you have afterwards, which is it's problematic in some ways.
Yeah, in that regards, I mean, how are you feeling about the internships and all the other things apart from the university, as in like getting prepared for the job? But that is, of course, getting affected as well. And are you searching for anything?
I'm lucky that I'm a first year, because the second years, third years, screwed.
Yes, probably. Another thing is, so how are you? I mean, what are the next steps for the rent strike? Essentially, from now on, so you postponed it until April, and so what's the strategy?
What's the strategy with the rent strike? The strategy with the rent strike currently, it's quite quiet. We don't really know where it's going to go. There's a 50% chance we get ready again and we go for it again, and there's a 50% chance that we don't. So, but there's the other campaign with the democratizing the SU, because the SU elections are on now. That's what a lot of us who are like trying to organize things on campus are kind of involved in. So the rent strike campaign, like it's just a wait and see thing. The private rent strike is still going on, hopefully. They need to get enough people in the maltings. They need to get enough people in these private accommodations, like at least 50% of them, to stop paying their rent, so they can have a negotiation with the landlord instead of just being like, screwed out of rent for not even living there.
Yeah, that's right. Right, so in regards to the quality of education overall, if you would like to sum up your experience in what you were provided, what did you pay for, what you expected, and what you got, how would you answer this question? These 3 questions, rather.
So, to be honest, when it comes to something like computer science, I probably could have found all the stuff I'm learning here on YouTube and got exactly the same experience. It's what I'm basically paying for at the end of the day is to have BSc at the end of my name in a couple of years' time. It's it really raises the question of, is university worth it if it's all online and if it's all like this? Because I mean, we had our in-person lessons, but it seemed like they were just doing that to give us this blended learning thing that they promised, because they weren't actually lessons, they were just labs. That was just me writing a few lines of code somewhere else rather than on my own computer. It's it's not worth $9,000 at all.
Yeah, and to expound on that, personally, I believe there are so many other resources, quite reputable resources. For example, Coursera has a very big range of courses, and I'm talking about computer science specifically, but there's also data science, mathematics, and other engineering subjects that are involved. So Coursera provides you a lot of quality education and guidance and more practical assessments than a university does for a very small fraction of the price. So, for example, there's a deep learning module that me and Anton took in our final year just because of interest. We were really interested in artificial intelligence, and we took a course on AI for about, I think it's 30 or 40 pounds a month. And it's also recurring, so you pay for as long as you want to learn, and you get to keep the material, but you're just paying for the extra sort of support. And I think Anton can provide more feedback in regards to what the parallel is available in regards to other sources of education, and specifically the deep learning module in Coursera. So Anton, what was your experience with that compared to
Yes, I think the current situation makes a lot of people reassess the value of university education. So
Right.
why are we doing this? And it really makes you question the whole situation. Why are you even going to the university? So it seems like, as you said, it's just to get a job or things like that. Because now the information is so readily available. Of course, it depends on the courses. I guess the kind of when you're doing the essays and things like that, this is very personal. You need an actual human being there to assess your reasoning, your style of delivery, delivering your arguments and information, how well you know the background. While let's say with computer science, it's a bit different, of course. There are things that you can just do on your own a lot more, I guess. So there is, I think, big disparity here. Again, a big inequality. You know, people are getting very, very different levels and quality of education, and I think this will show when the students graduate. You know, when you try to get your job, you'll find that students from some universities, from some courses, might be will be more successful or less successful. So what do you think about this?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, you could reiterate the question, please, like the actual, if you can, Nick.
Sorry?
Can you reiterate the question?
Yeah, the question is, so what is your take on this as far as what should happen for the modules? What should change for the university-based courses and modules to be worth the price in regards to the quality and the delivery?
Well, we're lucky in one way that like the idea that we come back next academic year and it's not normal is insane. It will be normal. I mean, Britain are stabbing people with vaccines, and everyone's getting a stab. Everyone's getting a vaccine. Your nan's getting a vaccine. Your mom's getting a vaccine. Your auntie's getting. Everyone's going to get a vaccine. So Britain will be back to normal, and it's very important that universities start internationally back to normal, because universities for the British government are very important. They're actually like an actual an income revenue, an income source, and as well, it's very prestigious to have the amount of high quality universities that generally high quality. Not when pandemics happen.
And it's also importing human capital with good knowledge and training people to stay in this country and become part of the workforce rather than working in some other country.
As well as that, it keeps our language. Like English is huge. People like the amount of importance of the English language over the world is insane. Like as an English speaker, you can just walk into any airport in the world and you'll be fine. So it's a much bigger thing. But as value as a student, this year it's wasted. Well, hopefully we'll come back next year, and it is about the experience. Like you know, people who take like arts degrees, people who take film. Like I know one person who takes film and like actually works on film sets. But there's people who take film just because I like movies. I like sitting in Silverado putting on Shrek or whatever. Like a lot of it is for the experience, and I'm looking forward to next year when we can come back and actually have a bit of that experience back.
I think next year it would be, if we're back to normal. Hopefully we are. It seems like the vaccine is working, and hopefully it will. I mean, it will take some time, of course, but I mean, we still have 6-7 months before the start of the next academic year. And if everything more or less returns to normal, let's say maybe some stuff, I mean, there won't be big lectures or something like that, but let's see. What I think is important, that universities introduce the support program for things that were missed out essentially on the previous year. I think that would be really good, but of course that will require a lot of resources, and it doesn't seem like universities will be very keen on it. So it might be that the students from previous years will support the first year or something like that, because it will have to happen, because you will see that people are missing out on fundamentals, especially if you missed out your first or second year.
Yeah, I mean, there's students who didn't have to pass A-level exams, Like, and look, realistically, most people like they would have done the same way or they would have done even better. But there are students who are here like coasted off like their teachers considering that they might get a good grade, and there are students here who've coasted off Googling. So you're right. In the second year and the third year, there could be students who like significantly struggle with like the basic sort of content, and I'm not sure how much support will be there for them, except like you just study more. Like it's gonna be it's I don't think they're gonna go particularly out of their way to help out because they're going to be just be like caught up with like students who are doing really well. So it's pretty sad for those students in particular who just haven't been up with this online thing like at all. Like me, I'm sort of I study on my own anyway. Like my course, you can kind of do it on your own, but like courses that need like specific tutoring and stuff like that, it's completely different for everyone in every course actually.
That's true. That's exactly true. The same thing
what we
happens
have
for
here,
computer science.
we just have computer science and political economics, which is me.
Yeah.
So if you got more people from different courses, you could find out. I mean, I've heard some people doing like physical education, and most of that's actually continued because they do it outside a lot, and they do certain things outside, and they do whatever. What I don't actually know what it's called, but they still have their in-person stuff because they need to learn how to, I don't know, massage people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what that is. But yeah,
Physiotherapy and stuff.
Physiotherapies, things like that.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that UK and EU students, well, EU up until this year, of course, and up until the previous year actually, or January if you count as this year essentially, they have access to the student finance, and one of them is me because I'm an EU student, so I came here to study and to work and live, of course, but the thing is that after in the next intake of students from September 2021, EU students are not eligible for student finance that UK students are, and I believe this is going to create a big problem in case of diversification of the universities, and this might also hurt the capital because, or rather capitalization of the finances of all universities, because if you charge an EU student, which, well, it can be argued, of course, but majority of EU countries do not have people with salaries that can cover 20 grand a year in salaries. And one example is somebody in our chat on YouTube just wrote, Omar Taki said, we are paying 18k as international students and we are not getting discount. And it's a major problem because, of course, there are some countries where you can have parents or make yourself quite a good amount of money. But if you're from countries where you have not so good GDP and purchasing power parity, this creates a big issue. So if they want to come into UK to study and get a degree, well, the door is pretty much shut on them, isn't it?
It's not just that. It's we've had it at the EU, and now because they're sort of EU immigrants, they'll come here and they used to be able to work, and they will still probably work illegally, but it is often it might be illegal for them to work because of the EU situation. So that it's going to close the doors to like a lot of people, and basically what you like, as if I was somebody in the UK government, I'd just be like sitting here hoping that students will keep coming, but it's entirely possible that a lot of people
hope dies last.
hope we have hope. Don't worry, it was oven ready Brexit deal. We'll be fine.
Yeah, well, you can't avoid Brexit. Yeah, in the UK for the past 5-6 years, this discussion.
The B word.
Yeah, they use the B word. Yes.
Everyone's biggest fear.
Can't avoid the B word. Yes.
All right, guys. So I think.
Thank you very much.
I guess we
Thank
can
you very
wrap
much
up
for coming.
this,
I mean, it was a very
podcast.
interesting discussion. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Your opinion is very much appreciated. That was one of the first podcasts, so we're trying to test the waters, see how it works, and so on. So, would you guys be interested in seeing similar podcasts with similar topics or in a similar format, and even maybe take part in them as well? So, how did you find the podcast so far?
Yeah,
definitely,
it was really good. I think you should try and get, because there's academics who actually like talk about this thing. Quite rebellious academics, you're talking about how your university's bad and it's marketized and it's awful, but there's a lot of academics who I'm sure would be interested.
Yeah, this was all done in such short notice. I mean, I reached you at the beginning of this week, maybe Monday or end of last week. And
I think it's a week ago for me, yeah.
Yeah, so it was very such short notice and the reason it was in such short notice was because, all right, why not do it? Because we were fed up. We were reading all those articles in the Financial Times, in the Guardian, Telegraph, and all those news outlets, and it was constantly students are being pressured, students are not being respected, students are being milked for money for rent, and it was great to have you guys on board in this panel today to pretty much give your point of views, which pretty much aligns because we are students as well. I'm studying at the University of York. I am doing masters. Well, of course, I'm doing it online, because I'm doing work at the same time. I work as a developer, but yeah, so it resonates pretty much with what we are going through. And yeah, so
well, one thing I can tell you guys is good luck with your education and
with your exams as well, guys.
Yeah. Good luck with your exams as well. I mean, obviously they're going to be online, and hopefully next
most
year,
likely going to be online.
Next year you can taste the proper university life, and not miss out on that.
I'll see you down the SU bar, boys.
If it ever opens up again.
And hopefully a democratized SU bar.
Oh, a democratized SU bar. Pints at $2.50.
Yeah, right now. Yeah. And you'll
Moon
rename
spices in the SU bar. That's a demand.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
much.
Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll keep in touch. And keep an eye
I'm
out
already
for
ahead
more
of you on that one.
Oh, cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
I'll go do it now.
Bye-bye.
All right.
All right. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye. All right, guys in chat, thank you very much for being part of the discussion as well. So this was our very first podcast.
Yes, I think it went quite well, actually. Quite well.
It went very, very well. So let me just change this to put it like that, and let's put some music and finish our stream. Like this. Alright, cool. Yeah, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing more podcasts just like this on various topics, including political ones, technology ones, Elon Musk, and Bitcoin to the moon. Anything you guys want, you can definitely let me know, and you can DM me on my social media. And of course, Anton here is a very excellent co-host, so you should be expecting more.
Thank you, everyone.
More streams from us. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you in the next podcast. Take care. Cheers.